Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eye Opener Society. I wanted to thank everybody once again, my entire audience, for listening in on this here episode and listening in on our show. And I appreciate everybody just hitting the play button. And we are changing things up slightly. I think, we all have to change, adapt, and evolve when it comes to podcasting. And same thing here with Eye Opener Society. In the coming months, we're going to kind of change up the topics, change up the mood of the whole show. And we would like, if you are following the show, please share it as well. Find some friends that you like, friends you think may enjoy this podcast. Get the links out there to them. And don't forget, not only does the Eye Opener Society have a podcast, but we also have Elaine's Arcane Oracle, where she does the tarot readings. And this is worth its price because it's free. And she normally charges for this, but at least you're going to get some general readings on this, not only on the horoscopes, but on tarot cards too, as well. And now we also have Sunset Child's Out There podcast, and we also have Anne Lund's Haunted and Waiting. And those two are with me right now for this episode. So what's happening is Anne Lund approached me and said she had a story that she had told to Sunset Child. And this here went a little bit beyond what Anne Lund is used to when it comes to the spiritual world and ghosts and things of that sort. So I've been dying to hear the story myself, and I'm going to be hearing it as well for the very first time on this episode. And then we're just going to kind of roundtable this. So I'm looking forward to it. So welcome, Sunset Child, and welcome, Anne Lund.
Hello,
Hi.
hello,
Hello.
So it's so
hello.
good to see the both of you again. I mean, this is really good. You two are like incredible to me. Anne Lund, you've always been, one of my favorite storytellers, and I can't wait for your book to get out there. Sunset Child, you're like therapy to me. Just, your words, the way you see things. No matter what I present to you, you have an idea that it is so out there, but at the same time makes so much sense. And so I really enjoy that. And I listened to your
You're
episodes.
welcome.
Yeah, definitely just for the therapy, of it. So, Anne Lund, you had a story, and I know you have tons of stories, but this one was a little different, wasn't it?
Yeah, this one was very different because it really doesn't have anything to do with ghosts or hauntings, although it tiptoes very close to it. And it's something that I was very confused about until I mentioned it to Sunset Child one day because I reached out to her hoping that she would have another perspective. And she actually explained it to me, and it makes sense. So I'm going to tell the story. It's going to take about 10 minutes. Let me just preface to say that it's a true story, but the way I'm going to present it, I'm changing some of the information so as to protect the people that are involved in that story. I did not get permission from this person to share this story, and so that's why I'm changing some of the names, some of the settings, and whatnot. Okay.
Okay.
So the story started, I want to say maybe about 4 years ago. There is a drugstore in my neighborhood, and there was a woman who worked in the drugstore that I was friendly with, but not friends with, but friendly enough that I knew a little bit about her, that she was married, she had kids, she had a pet, that kind of just basic information. And when I would go in there, how is your dog? How is whatever? And that was about it. So we were also social media friends. So at some point we exchanged social media, so I was able to follow her there as well, but not really friendly with her. Like I never had a cup of coffee with her. So at one point, I was walking with some ladies on my street, and one of the ladies was basically talking about this woman from the drugstore. Let's call her Sue. That's not her name, but was talking about Sue and said, "Did you see her daughter's wedding pictures?" And I said, "No, no. Oh yeah, her daughter got married. You need to see that." And they all started laughing, like making fun of this wedding. And so I asked them what's funny about it, and they're like, "You just gotta see it." So whatever. We did our walk. When I got home, I went on my social media, went to her page, and I saw the wedding pictures. And although I could understand why they were making fun of it, I thought the wedding was absolutely stunning. So the best way to explain this wedding was the wedding pictures were all taken in a graveyard. Bride and groom in the graveyard. The bride was beautiful. I've never seen her in real life, but tall, long, jet black hair. She wore a very plain dress, not a wedding dress that you would normally see on a bride. It was like form fitting, almost like a slip. You could see her shape behind it. She was barefoot. She didn't have a veil, but she had a ring of roses around a crown of like simple little roses. It was like a yellow colored dress. And she was standing amongst gravestones, and they were old gravestones. Now, and then her husband also dressed from like another period, like maybe 1800s or something like that. And I'm looking at these pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the old church around the corner from my house. Now, around the corner from my house, we have an old Lutheran church. It's about 250 years old. And the graves obviously are about 250 years old. I know the cemetery like the back of my hand, as I had told Sunset Child, because I base some of my novel on some of the graves that are there. So I've been there many a time. And the church is an old church. It's got a steeple with a belfry. It's beautiful. And I recognized this as that church. 100% sure that it was this church. It was this graveyard. And Sunset, I sent you the picture of the tree, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I sent there's a cypress tree that looks like a man hunched over walking through the graves. It's
Yeah.
I'll post it on my Facebook if people are curious. So that was one thing that was in the picture and I was like, "Oh, this is the grave. That's funny." Well, it made sense. The drugstore is in the neighborhood. She's probably belongs to that church. Okay. So I see the woman I don't know, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, I'm not sure. And I said, "Oh, congratulations on your daughter's wedding. I saw the pictures. They were beautiful." And she immediately, when I looked at her, she looked at me she wasn't happy. And this is another thing Sunset talks to me about. Sometimes you can look at a person and you know them, but they look different. She looked different. It was her. It looked like her, but the expression on her face, she just look like her, but not really like her, if that makes sense. And Sunset Child can explain this a little more because we've had these conversations of when you look at somebody and their face almost looks different, and she looked different. And on top of looking different, she looked mad when I had mentioned this thing. And she goes, "Yeah, my daughter got married." And I said, "Oh, I know the church. It's the church in, around the corner from my house, such and such and such and such town." And she was adamant, "No, it's not that church. It's the husband's church, and it's in another state, another town, not anywhere near where we are." And then I got this vibe of like, leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it. So I kind of walked away. And the way I interpreted that is she was a very, like stoic kind of woman, well put together. I thought maybe she was embarrassed about the wedding being in a graveyard and so and so, because like I said, maybe she thought I was making fun of her and something. So I walked away. She was not happy. So everything's good and fine. Now we're going to fast forward maybe a year or two later. I'm not really sure. And here I am on the street again, walking with the same group of women. And one of the women turns to me and says, "Did you hear about Sue's daughter?" And I said, "No." And she said, "She passed away." I'm like, "Really?" So it was she passed away suddenly. I don't want to get into what happened, but it was a shock to everybody. And she died. So here we are talking, and they decided that they wanted to go to the wake. The wake was going to be that night or whatever. So, let's go to the wake, what have you, and, show support, whatever. I'm like, fine. We're all like mama bears. We have kids the same age. We went. So I get there. She's there. The mother, she's fine. Thank goodness the casket was closed casket. But as is in a lot of Christian funerals, wakes, they had a bunch of pictures of her all over the place, Girl Scouts when she was a baby, in grade school, high school prom, all this kind of stuff. And in the middle of those pictures were her wedding pictures. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to these wedding pictures. And I'm looking at the wedding pictures, same girl. Okay. And I couldn't see her in the casket because it was closed casket, but same girl, long dark hair, same dress, lemon colored yellow dress with the same crown of flowers, in a cemetery. She's barefoot. She's definitely in a cemetery. This is where it's weird. Not the same cemetery, not the same church, definitely somewhere else. It was not the church that I saw, and I'm like, that is really, really weird. Didn't think anything of him, thinking, okay, maybe made a mistake. Although between you and I know for sure that first set of pictures was that church. So I leave, I go home, and what's the first thing I do is I start snooping. So I go onto her profile picture and find no pictures of the wedding on her page, the mother's page. start really snooping and go to family members on her page, go to their pages, can't find it. The girl who had passed away, her Facebook profile was still open. I go to hers, no pictures of the wedding. There was a wedding picture of her, the same that I had seen, but nothing that would show like there were no proper pictures of the cemetery or her getting married and what have you. So I kind of let it go. Okay. Okay. This is where it gets weird. So as if it wasn't weird already. So it was maybe about 2 days later or 3 days later, I'm sleeping. I get woken up. Now, this church has a beautiful belfry and it plays this song like on Sunday mornings. And it was playing this song, but it was really, really loud, like louder, like it sounded like it was next door. So I'm like, that's weird. Couldn't go back to sleep. Try to cover my head with a pillow, couldn't get up. And then I was up. So I'm looking at my dog and I'm like, okay, let's go for a walk. So I take her out. Now, the way my house is situated, if you go to the left, it's my street and it's a quiet street. You can walk your dog and whatever, no sidewalks. But if you take a right, it's a very busy street. It's an R50, so people are going 50 miles an hour. Again, no sidewalk. But if you go right, you can walk to that cemetery. It's about 4 blocks, but it's a four treacherous blocks. I've done it in the past, but it's not fun. But something that day told me to make a right and head to the cemetery. And not to go to the cemetery, but if you could get to the cemetery, you could cut through it. And on the other side of the cemetery was a really beautiful neighborhood. There was like a pond there. So my goal was to just suffer the 4 blocks, go through the cemetery with the dog, and then I could walk, 2 or 3 miles in this beautiful neighborhood where it was safe. So that was, again, the odd thing about it was something told me to go that way. And I heard the belfry, whatever. So I go through the cemetery. And when you get to the cemetery, there is a path. To the left of the path is all the graves that I'm very familiar with. Okay. And the church and the man walking, the cypress tree that looks like a man walking through the graves. So that's all on the left hand side. To the right hand of that cemetery is just open land where I guess I guess they're saving it to put more graves. And that area has maybe like 4 or 5 graves. It's basically empty. So I'm never really looking at that side. I'm looking at the other side because that's where the graves are that I'm familiar with. I mean, I know the names of the people there and what have you. So but I'm looking to the right and I see this mound and it's newly dug mound. It's got flowers. And for whatever reason, I go over to the mound to examine it again, which is not something I would do because it's a new grave. Like, why would I can't even read a tombstone. So I go over to the grave and I look at the name on the marker, which was like a plastic marker sticking out of the ground, and it was her grave.
Wow.
That's my story.
Wow. Well, yeah, I appreciate you so much telling that story. And it's, I mean, I have my thoughts. I'm going to reserve them. But you told this to Sunset Child already. But Sunset Child, I want to hear your take on this because I almost think I know what you're going to say.
Well, when she told me this, it started coming to me because usually it'll start hitting me, like as she's talking or when anybody's talking. And it just started coming to me timelines, and she was going back in time without not even realizing that she's going back in time and picking up on something that the girl was already doing back in an age where was, let's say, 1800s or something. And Mar- Anne was jumping from timeline to timeline, and that's all I could see was Anne was jumping from timeline to timeline with this whole story, and it was just giving her real time of dimensions and just showing her all the different timelines that she has been in and this girl has been in. And when we talk about them changing, the faces changing, right? That's all entities and stuff. They don't want you to do that. They don't want you to realize and wake up and see these things. They want you to stay asleep. They're trying to keep you down. And when she was talking about the girl's dress and when she was talking about not being at that grave, but being at another grave, and the mother taking pictures at another grave. She's picking up on all the stuff that this girl and her have been in, like all different multiverses coming in. It was just crazy, because that's and then when we talked about the lady, her face was changing and all the stuff. That's walk-ins. They're walk-in. She's going through whatever it is that she's going through, and they come in and they take over because the other body cannot handle it no more, so they move on, and this walking comes in, and your face changes, your hands change, your feet change, your mental kind of changes too as well. But with her talking about these different things, Anne went from one place to another before anything ever happened, if that makes sense. Because sometimes we travel in time without even knowing that we're traveling. See, we see things like it's like 2020. You see things that are happening now, but you already viewed them. So Anne was already viewing all the stuff that was going on before it even happened, while it
So
was happening.
do you think, because I don't remember if I asked you this question, but do you think that it was possible that I was at that wedding at another time? Or,
Yes, you
but
were
now,
there. You were there without even realizing that you were there. It's
so,
we've been in so many timelines that these timelines are collapsing. So you're remembering all your timelines that you've been with that lady's family. Because there's a timeline of you with this lady
but I
and her
wonder if
daughter.
there's a timeline with that church, because why
Yeah.
would it be a, 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 a wedding and then a funeral?
Because
And
you're
then,
part of that. You're part of it. You're part of all that that's happening. We don't just have one timeline. Right now, everything's crazy. You understand? Everything's all people are some people are going out of their minds, some people are sad, some people are excited, some people because their time as timelines collapse, it's coming to your the one reality that you've been hoping for all your life. So all these timelines are collapsing, and you were in those timelines, so you collapsed all you're collapsing your timelines to come to your greater good, to come to the greatest good, no harm to none. And that's where all these timelines are all together. It's a multiverse. We have trillions of timelines.
mm,
And you were part of that church. You every anything that you think in your mind, you're a part of. So if you think you're not a part of it, you're a part of it.
yeah, it's very strange because I've told this story to very few people, and a couple of people have said, "Well, why don't you go back to the mom?" And I'm like, "Why would I ever go back to the mom and tell her this story?" Like it just, and now
Yeah,
we've
no, leave
stretched
it.
completely. Yeah, she's not going to believe me. She's going to think I'm,
It's
whatever. But
right.
it's just that church has literally. I've been so drawn to that church. Again, it's a very old church. It's a pretty church. It's old.
Right,
And the graves, I mean, I know I've told Sunset, like I know this, in those churches, you can read the stones and there's usually like a little story, like adopted son of so and so. And so I've spent a lot of time. And when I tell you, I am 155% sure that that's what I saw in those pictures the first time around. But it just kind of struck me as very odd. And I remember calling Sunset after I saw that grave. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Remember when and I sent her pictures and I was
right.
completely freaked out.
Because we're time travelers, whether we realize it or not. We're time traveling. You're time traveling. That's what you're doing. And you're seeing in real time the things that you were in already, your timelines.
Mm,
And like I always say, you are in real time. We're coming into our highest good. So all our timelines are coming in together. believe it or not, it's coming all in together. We are a multiverse.
Yeah.
And there's so many layers of us. It's like an accordion. Like you come out and you come in. We're all one. We are all one.
Yeah.
Now, let me
So,
ask you this, Anne.
Mhm.
Did you ever at any point feel anything different, like you lost time or gained time or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
no, it was like it just happened. I mean, I will gladly share you a picture of the grave, but I would prefer you not to share it, but I would gladly, I have it. Um, it's just, and that one thing though that I did mention with the mom, that has happened to me before where I'll look at someone I know, like I know them. It could be my husband it could be my kids for Christ's sake, and I'll look at them and just for a second, it's them. It looks like them, but then it doesn't look like them. And it's a very weird thing to happen. And it does happen from time to time. I wouldn't say it happens a lot, but it happens from time to time. It's probably happened to everybody with everybody I know that I see often. But it happened with that mother that day when I went in there and I approached her, and it was with all pure good intention because I honestly thought those pictures were hauntingly beautiful. I interpreted it as she thought I was maybe making fun of her, like of the situation, because it was a little bit off, off the beaten path,
Mhm.
but she did not look like her. It, she, it didn't look like her. It was her, but there was just something that was a little bit different, almost like as if you had, like in a movie sometimes where they'll get somebody to play like Lady Diana, and it looks like them, but not really. Something like that,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
It does. And now Sunset Child, I agree with you. As far as these timelines, I've even explained on a couple of podcasts myself that as far as what I believe, like we have a normal timeline. We have like from 1800 right up until 2025. It's a straight line and everything, is going in sync. But in reality, if we take the line away and then like Sunset Child, you had said time is collapsing. Everything that has happened is not happening. Everything that has happened is happening. It's all over the place. We're already born, we're already died, we're still living all at the same time because time
Exactly.
just it's just there. It's just a vacuum, but we're living in these different timelines. So at some point we do sometimes recognize that we're in a different timeline because we're seeing things that don't feel right or they don't seem right. And what's funny, the timing of this episode too, last night, now it could also be other reasons too, but I'll share a story. Last night I got up, my wife, she doesn't sleep very well. Now we're in the same bed, sitting side by side. She was up playing her games on her phone because that's what she does to pass time, kill the time, because since she can't get to sleep. I got up, used the restroom. I came back and she started screaming and crying and looking over on my side, and I panicked. I was, "What's going on? I went into a panic because she was in such a panic too as well. She goes, "It's you. It's you. It's you." And I was like, "Yeah, it's me. I'm right here." But she never recalled me getting out of the bed. And then when I came back in, she just thought I was somebody else, and that's why she kept looking over on my side of the bed because she thought I was still right there. So I do believe something like that is a shift in the timeline, 1 foot
Yeah,
in, 1 foot out, and we're just viewing it from another perspective. Everything that has happened already happened, and we're just not caught
exactly.
up with it. We're not in sync with it at that moment. And I think, Anne, that's what has happened to you. It's very difficult because, like I say, it's my story is a little quicker. It's like a one smaller incident where yours is huge. I mean, it's a wedding, it's a funeral, it's recognizing somebody, but not really recognizing them. So you have a much larger story, which would bring you into a much larger timeline, and you were in that timeline probably a lot longer than you thought. So it's definitely an interesting story. I really appreciate you sharing it. And
Mhm.
the only other thing I can say is if you have the person's name and last name, you could do searches on their wedding. Because I mean, if it's a traditional wedding, these things are a matter of public record a lot of times, and the marriage
Yeah.
certificates, and you could look it up and then maybe see exactly where it was.
I was snooping like you would not believe, and then I felt like really bad because I could literally find nothing that was. I found the pictures of the wedding. I found the wedding, but nothing in the grave. What I wanted to see was pictures in the grave, like by the graves. That's what I wanted to see. And like I said, when I was at the wake, there were pictures of her by a grave, but it was a different graveyard.
Mm,
It was just a totally different graveyard. But on the internet, I couldn't find on the Facebook pages that I was trolling, I couldn't find anything. There was nothing there. So I kind of chalked it up to maybe I imagined it, like, but like maybe I imagined it, but not really. I guess I could kind of say. But then when I saw the grave, I'm like, that's really, really weird. That's
mm,
really weird.
right.
That there's something tying her to this church, this cemetery, this area.
And with the
So
entanglement theory, it's you're attached in some way too as well, because we're
yeah,
all attached in one way
yeah,
or another, and you're viewing something that's probably a past memory of a past life or whatever it may be, and that's why it all came to you and you started realizing all of this.
yeah. Well, I have spent a lot of time in that church and in that cemetery. I'm not a parishioner, but I'm basing a lot of my book on that, loosely based on that. Um, so I know the area very well. Like if you said where's so and so buried, I could take you right there and tell you a little bit about that person because I've researched it. So that's why I know it's what I saw.
Right.
I know it because I've been there so often.
See,
But then what made me that day turn right and go down that road with the dog? And it just, none of that what made me hear that song. And why was it so loud? It was loud.
Mm,
It was like so loud. Like I still remember me putting the pillow over my head. I'm like, oh my God, let it go. Like, what the heck's going on? I'm thinking maybe there's a wedding and they made it louder. It was really weird.
mm,
Something was
well,
taking me there.
mhm.
Something
well, it
was
was
taking me
calling
there.
you. It was
Yeah.
calling you. Remember, man has made time, regular time, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. That's all man made. Just like the spring ahead, fall back, that was done in
Right.
1942. That was during World War II. They put that into law. And but the timelines, time is infinite. Time is things are happening. Things are we're at a state right now that our lowest timelines are going. Our highest timelines are also going because we're elevating ourselves. And we're elevating ourselves to the highest point, which is to the top of ourselves, our good selves. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all these things you get to see in real time. This is the time to see it. You're getting
Right.
to see everything because you need to see it. You need to view it and you need to come into it. And it calls you. Why does it call you? Because you are that person. You're vibrating at a high frequency. Your vibration, you're coming into yourself. You're coming into your higher self. And it's calling upon you, your source. And you're vibrating very high. And I know you're high. I'm saying it from a personal point of view, you are very high. And that's why all these things are coming to you. And you are seriously like that's why it's all coming to you because you're feeling it. You're listening to yourself. You're listening to your inner self. And once you listen to that inner self, you're good to go.
Yeah. And I guess for
Good
any
to go.
listeners out there, when you get a message, like people think messages are, I hear a voice telling me to do that. Those are not messages. Messages are paying attention to a bird in the sky. If you're looking at that bird for some reason, there's a message there. Or, just a feeling to, I'm going to close this door right now. Like all of those messages, I think is your intuition. And I think a lot of people don't focus on that. And I don't think I'm any more elevated. Sunset Child's always telling me I'm elevated, but I don't think I'm any more elevated than anybody else. But what I do is I do pay attention to myself. That I do
Right.
do.
And that's
And I
being
think that's what a
elevated to
lot of
begin with.
people. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's like from what I know of you, um, you're in tune. And it's the same thing as being elevated. You're very much in tune with yourself. You're in tune with your surroundings. Your meditation helps you and it brings your mind to that, 5D state to where more things will happen to you like this. They may not be understood fully because you just don't have the connection yet, but eventually that's going to come to you. I really think that. Um, and I know Sunset Child's definitely elevated, and
Mhm.
I agree totally with everything she's saying, where it's just it's a new I guess what you're trying to say, we're in this new age now where everything is collapsing as far as our own basic reality. And I
Right.
feel that because of everything that's going on. It seems so chaotic, it seems so out of place. We're seeing things we've never thought we'd see, but that's because, yeah, there's a big change in humanity. We're starting to break out of that old way of thinking, and we're starting to get into this entirely new perspective. And at least I'm hoping that's what it is because I really think we need that. We need to get to that higher plane of things rather than this same old, go to work every day, this three-dimensional world. We need to break out of that. And just like Anne Lund had said, you have to see and pay attention to these signs, right? I mean, you could get an actual verbal message. I think that's possible, but most messages come to us in these very subtle forms. They're very, very, like you said, you're just looking at a bird. Well, why did I look at the bird? What type of bird is it? What was the bird doing? What direction was it flying in? There's so many questions you could ask of such very small things that can bring you to realize that it's a message that has to pertain to your own life.
And it's interesting also because if you look, people that are older, um, older like us or even older than that, I tell Sunset all the time, I'm like, that person's an earth dweller.
Mhm.
And that person's that right? Don't I say that?
Yes,
That person's higher than the
they
earth. That
are.
one there, right? But those people, those are earth dwellers, and I don't do well with earth dwellers. And how I define an earth dweller is, look at my car, look at my ring, look at where I live. This is my zip code. Those are the earth dwellers. And as I've gotten older, my friend circle has gotten much, much smaller. But I tend to be the people that I'm with tend to not. It's not that some of them don't have money; they may, but they're not thinking those things. They're thinking more of like more higher level spiritual, those kinds of things. And those people, those are the people I want around me.
Mm,
So, yeah, it's just interesting. And as you start to elevate or pay attention to signs, like things, sometimes like I'll walk down the street and the street, it's my street, but it doesn't look like my street. It could be
mm,
anything. It could even be, an earring. It's your earring, but it just looks a little different. And I can't figure out what that is. Or the air outside just feels different,
yeah.
and I don't know if those are timelines or what, but it's just weird. It's just something to think about. Been wondering about that for a while.
Yeah. Well, I think we've explained it. I really think it has a lot to do with this, these timelines that we're walking at. And you're right. As we get older and we understand things around us more, we tend to start to break out of this little matrix that we're in, and we're going to start seeing things differently. And the same road we take every single day starts to take on a brand new persona. And I think it's completely possible. And I appreciate the fact that, this has happened to you and you're willing to share it because it can open up the eyes of many different people. Because I'm sure you're probably not the only one who has experienced things like this. There's probably other people that are keeping really quiet about it because they're worried about it. They don't understand it. This might help them to, say, hey, other people are experiencing this,
Mhm.
and they can start looking and putting things together and trying to figure out what it means. And that's the most fun part too, is trying to figure out what it means because we're not going to know right away. Oh, I know
Yeah.
exactly what this is. But it's fun because it's going to learn a lot about your own life. You can learn about other people's lives, past lives, and all that just by sitting there and thinking about it and trying to find all the different connections.
Mm. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if I gotta tell you, this was a fantastic episode. I enjoy the story. I really do. Did you Sunset Child? Did you want to add anything to this, or because I appreciate everything that you say for sure. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm
All
good.
right, great. Well, here's the thing. We were
Thank you.
supposed to. Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. We were supposed to have Elaine from Arcane Oracle on, but she wasn't able to make it. And like you said, when you meet people and I met Elaine in person for the first time, known her for about 2 years, just from being connected online and, being part of the Eye Opener Society, but I met her for the first time in person, and it's wild when you meet somebody, like, there are people that are connected in certain ways. Some people, though, when you are spiritually connected, they're not exactly the most happy, and there's a reason for that. The world that they're in, or we are in, is sometimes it doesn't meet our requirements. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think the more people we meet, the more people we talk to, as long as they're not earth dwellers, we're gonna get along with them.
They like that earth dwellers thing, right?
I love it, and I'm going to use it.
I do not. I used to get along with them. See, I was never an earth dweller. I think from the moment I was born, I was never an earth dweller. I just wasn't. But yeah, as I've
I
gotten
certainly
older, I've
wasn't.
figured them out. You what?
I said I certainly
What?
wasn't.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
that's good. I appreciate the both of you for sure, for not being earth dwellers and for being on the higher planes than the rest. It's wonderful to connect with you all. Um, but I wanna
Now we
thank you
gotta get
definitely.
shirts.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a great idea. Yeah, so I wanna thank you though both. I wanna thank you and Lund for sure for telling this, story, and bringing this, to the Eye Opener Society platform. I wanna thank you, Sunset Child, for sure for sharing, your thoughts and perspectives on it as well, and hopefully we can maybe make some more connections with this story and more things will pop up and we can keep the audience, uh, tuned in with it. In the meantime, if you have to, or you really should actually, go to hauntedandwaiting.blog and you get to see all of Anne Lund's blogs. And definitely just go to eyeopenersociety.podbean.com or just search Eye Opener Society on any of your favorite listening platforms, and you will find Anne Lund's podcast on our platform. And you'll also find Sunset Child's Out There podcast as well. And we are working very hard on getting Sunset Child to do, a
yes,
Facebook, podcast page. This way everybody can find her.
yes,
Because
yes,
most of you
please.
yeah, because most of you following her or found her, that's her personal page, and I didn't want people, bombarding her personal page, so we're trying to get her to get an out there podcast Facebook page. Eye Opener Society is on Facebook as well. Just search Eye Opener Society on Facebook, and you can follow us there, and again, share us, bring in some new listeners, and we're going to be changing things up. But in the meantime, I want to thank our guests, Ann Lund and Sunset Child. And I want to say, tune in because we are going to have some more exciting and fun episodes as well. So I thank you again for listening, and everybody, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.